Hello, I am Felipe Andrade and I will be talking about free press and censorship in Russia. My research question is how President Vladimir Putin has changed free press in Russia. And this is the index of my presentation, the main topics I will be talking about, so I will leave it here so you can see it briefly. First is President Vladimir Putin, who is president for his third period. He has been president now since 2012, and he will be until 2024 and may be re-elected. He was former president of the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, which was the successor of the KGB, which was the Committee of State Security of the Soviet Union. We all know the dangerous things they did during the Cold War. And he's just the second president of the Russian Federation after the fall of the Berlin Wall, which meant Russia's transition from communism to capitalism. The Russian Federation is a federal semi-presidential republic where a president governs alongside a prime minister. Russia's prime minister is Mikhail Mishustin. It's the biggest country in the world, so you can see how difficult it is to apply censorship and control free press. And there have been some complaints from the public opinion because there have only been 5 people under the 2 main charges in Russia, the prime minister and the president, and these 5 people belong to the same political line. This is the background of free press during the Soviet Union. They had control over newspapers, over cinema, TV and radio, and there was constant propaganda appearing. So the government had direct censorship over whatever their citizens wanted to publish, but in that time most citizens agreed with the Soviet Union and were communists, so they didn't apply a lot of censorship. Now the actual landscape since 2011, where the anti-government protests, Putin has signed a lot of laws to restrict free press in Russia. Media can be private or public property, but still has to undergo some filters from the Russian government to publish anything. And TASS, which is the only national press agency, is the one in charge to give information to the international media about Russia, and it's controlled by the government. So we're getting limited and not real information about Russia. There's a lot of cases of journalist death and journalist disappearance and imprisonment, which makes free press even more difficult. Crimea and Chechnya are black holes, and we don't know exactly what's going on with these conflicts, and the Russian media is controlling everything, and there still is TV and radio propaganda. This is the actual Russian media outlet. Russia owns all of the 6 TV national networks, 2 radio national networks, 2/3 of the 45,000 national newspapers, which is 66%, which is crazy, and TASS, the national agency. These are some of the main laws Putin uses to control free press and apply censorship. This is the foreign agent law, so someone who carries out the interest of an entity or a company that is not from Russia has to be considered as a foreign agent. Also non-profit organizations involved in political activities must declare a foreign agent, and a foreign agent, in other words, in Russia is like being accused of espionage, so the government can control what you publish. Also the foreign agent media law, so people who use media users like bloggers, influencers and journalists, if they use media to talk about Russia, they will also be considered as foreign agents. And for last is the mass media law, where journalists have the right to receive only information from Russian media. Citizens also have this right and have the right to receive information about their state representatives' activities only if they demand them, but supposedly they are of high demand in Russia. Um, these are the recent technology laws, the Russian app law. So this says that the technology sold in Russia has to have a software pre-installed by the Russian government so they can vigilate what people do with smart technology. And the sovereign internet law allows Russia to intercede in the World Wide Web if they consider it an emergency, but their criteria are quite doubtful, so they are constantly intercepting in the World Wide Web, in the internet traffic, and blocking sites. Also, journalist death are something really common. Since 2000 to 2008, there were a lot of deaths, 108 deaths. The number has decreased with just 13 deaths from 2012 to 2018. And there is the case of Anna Politkovskaya, who was a Russian journalist and activist, human rights activist, who knew what was happening in Chechnya, published in newspapers and in books, and because of the information she published, she was murdered in the elevator of her building. And it's believed that that President Putin was behind this. Also, many journalists who died died from going to do war coverage in Crimea or Chechnya and die under weird circumstances. Well, and finally, this is my conclusion. The Soviet Union exerted direct censorship during towards their citizens, while the Russian Federation applies indirect and direct censorship. And the thing is, Russia wants to give the notion to the world that there is free press in Russia, but actually there is none, and people have realized it. So Putin does not apply direct censorship, does not control everything, but at least controls what the information Russia can give out to the external world. And internally, there is not total and direct censorship like there used to be in the Soviet Union, but now with the last laws in the internet and technology laws, he will have indirect censorship and will know what all the citizens are doing. And that's different of what was happening with the Soviet Union. And we can see how Putin has used internet and technology weapons to consolidate what he wants, how he wants free press to be in Russia, and how to apply censorship.